Okay, awesome. Hi, Mary.
Kelli.
I'm here with Mary Hayes, intuitive counselor, medium, good friend, and also a channel to this group of angelic enlightened beings that you've been channeling for, 20 years?
Yes.
Would you say a little bit about them?
I'd be honored to. Similar to something you and I had discussed before, I feel they've been with me since I was a child. I didn't put that together immediately, but when they showed up in my adult years and asked to work directly with me, I was so honored. I knew then, I had such a strong sense of such a large, powerful group wanting to bring assistance literally to the planet, and they chose me. And now my perspective is, since a little girl, they've been aiding me and helping me, but now the mission is larger. Now the message is the purpose is to take the message out that much further out into the world. And it's a privilege and an honor, and they're just delightful.
Yay, I love
joy.
It. And I've had the pleasure of having personal sessions with the channel and also attending some of your group sessions, which incidentally, if you live in the Central Florida area, Mary does amazing, what do you call it, sessions or?
So
what's the right wordage here?
You're
an angle a little
it's so unusual what I do that even finding the verbiage
yes,
for it,
yes, I'm sure.
So I tend to call it evening with the channel.
Yes.
So then it's not described exactly. Of course, this fall I'll be doing one in the afternoon, and it was like, well, then what do I call it? But. Everyone, usually with these group events, everyone has a chance to ask a question. And what happens when someone is given permission, when each person gets a chance to ask a question, we're really dialed in and focused on what's going on with them. Sometimes the questions are very personal, and sometimes the questions are very esoteric. And the group is always glad to facilitate wherever the need is, because each one of us, if we get guidance, if we have the assurance or the confirmation that we need, then we live more in that place of inspiration, which is what I think we all aspire to do.
And I'm always so amazed at the group sessions about how the messages, they seem like they're for everyone. Even though it's an individual question, the whole group, it's kind of on point. Yeah. It's like there's like an energy dynamic and I've been to at least half a dozen of these, or probably something like that, maybe 5 group sessions, and it's always different, and it always feels like there's a group energy and there's sort of a common theme that happens with the questions, right?
It's very true. And even for me, doing this so many years now, I'm still amazed at that very aspect of it. The people, the actual order in which we go around the group, one answer will build on another answer, one insight will build on another insight, and it's, almost everyone comes away enriched, not beyond what they were personally seeking, but they're hearing what other people's answers are. And there's such there's such good support for each other within the group. People, they empathize with what's happening for someone else. Their heart's open because it's like, oh, I know what it feels like. So it's so cohesive and so supportive. It really is a gathering of community and people seeking. But you're very right that the themes can be very telling around each collective group that shows up. It's fascinating.
It is, and the events are always so magical. It always just feels like an upliftment. But that's, this podcast idea, I kind of came to you with this idea, like, let's record some channeled work. And I think it started, I sort of had an idea, maybe it's a book, but then we kind of settled on, now it's a podcast with the channel, like evenings with the channel. That's the tentative thing that we're calling it. But building on that idea of, like, there's information for everyone, for the group, the collective. So now we're sort of standing in as sentinels of the collective and asking questions that hopefully can benefit, our little community in Central Florida and beyond with this format. So
absolutely.
That's kind of the goal here today. And I've got, some questions I wanted to get into with the channel, just because I'm always curious, what does the channel think about these things, these higher minded principles? But then also today, I'm going to be practicing channeling a little bit, because Mary and maybe also the channel that speaks through you have said that this is something that you wanted to do with me today. So
absolutely, we're nudging her respectfully because the interest has been expressed. So
yes.
Where do you begin? You just say, I guess it's today.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to try that a little bit too. So I guess the plan is I'm going to ask some questions and we're going to get channeled responses, and then I'll have an opportunity also to see if there's anything that maybe this group that has
Beautiful.
chosen.
And if I can just add one more thing, Kelli.
Let's do that.
A lot of times through the years of doing this, people will say, well, like, why do they do this? Like, why do they want to come and help? And I think that's a valid question. Or, you know, of course, again, I'm often asked, who are they? And I think it's easiest just to say they're similar to the angelic realm, that they are illuminated beings. But when we think about people on the planet, so many of us are here knowing we're in service. So many of us want to be helping others. You know, whether we're in a nursing background or teachers or whatever, there's a lot of humans that are here helping at this time especially. Well, the way I see it is more help is better. So there are beings that do not dwell on the planet that also want to be helper beings that are, I think our planet is actually being flooded right now with a lot of help because the planet's going through its own difficulties, its own strange and bewildering at times metamorphosis, but nevertheless for an end goal that I think is going to be very beautiful. So there's more help coming in now, and the way I look at it personally is like I said, more help is better. So I'm always willing to be in service to others and allow others that are wanting to be in service to us to work with me and work with us.
Love it. That's great.
So, yes.
So are we ready to get into it? Is
They're
the channel
here
ready?
And ready. They're always on call.
So, and I say the channel because that's what they've actually asked to be called.
That's
Is that
correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, there are others on the planet right now, very respectable channels that bring in different groups that have names. And I think there's validity in that. But what happens, I think, sometimes with a name, then we tend to get considered then genders or, you know, what planet are they from? Or there's a tendency to be more definitive in who and what they are. My group has chosen kind of to be, really likes to be behind the scenes. They're happy for the message to get out, but it's not about them getting their message out. So by going with something that's kind of non-defined, being called the channel, it kind of says kind of what they do and who they are, but they don't seek any more notoriety than that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the channel ready?
They are.
I have a sort of outline in my nerdiness. So we're going to start, I guess, just at the top. And I know that I've provided this to you before, and they've looked at it, and you've looked at it. So the first kind of topic that I wanted to look into is the nature of good and evil. I'll start big. And I'll just say that, you know, great sages and masters and all the major religions are kind of founded on this principle, at least their founders believe that all is one, you know, that there's a unity among every life and even inanimate forms on earth and in the universe, that there's this unity, all is one. And yet we live in this duality here, you know, obviously in this duality, there's good, evil, black, white, you know, right, wrong. And I guess the question is, even though we know at this level all is one, there's this apparent or relative good and evil or duality. So the first question, how can there be both? How can there be unity and duality? How do we reconcile that? Because clearly on earth we see that there is duality. There's sometimes things suck and sometimes things are great. So what would the channel speak to that?
So first, let us say greetings to you,
Hello.
dear one.
So good to have you.
It is a supreme honor. Truthfully, we thank you individually for conceiving of this idea. We're always willing and open to serve in any capacity that we can, but we love this format. This is the first, truthfully, in such a formal process, and we're grateful. So, but we will not dilly-dally going into this rather massive question, but it is of the greatest importance, especially at a time where there appears to be so much division, so much dissension, so much, as you have said, duality. So, is there an indwelling essence that unites all beings in all realms? Yes. Call that the chi, if you will, right? Okay. Call it the energy of life. There is the very essence and the very energy of life that is within all beings, right? Even what would appear to be inanimate, truthfully, there's essence and energy,
Yes.
right? And that's becoming more and more apparent through, recent studies and so on. And yet, our sense is this, dear one, in order for there to be continued growth, continued evolution, and continued experiences that provide these opportunities for growth and evolution, there has to be contrast, or at least the appearance of contrast. For example, dear, Central Florida, as you well know, as a farmer also, there was devastating freezes
Yes.
just weeks ago that created a lot of devastation, right? There was a lot of death, there's a lot of plants died back, and so it looked awful, right? It looked like there was a lot of negativity that came from this quote-unquote bad experience. And yet, in the aftermath, as life has its resurgence, many things have not really died. They've just died back. There can be the appearance of a horrible situation, and yet some other plants have actually continued to thrive or do even better.
Yes.
Because they needed the cold temperatures. So for a plant, let's say, that needs the colder temperatures, this was a blessing and a godsend. For a plant that doesn't thrive in the cold, it either knocked it back or it actually, went into a dying process. But even in the dying process, then it becomes mulch, and then it becomes rich soil, and then it becomes life-giving for other plants. And you would understand this more. So where is the perspective? And the idea that there are blessings or gifts, whatever words feel comfortable, in the midst of all of these experiences, that's where it's very healthy to step back and go, let's say from a human perspective, gosh, I don't like this, I'm seeing things die around me, it doesn't feel good, I don't like it. It's fair to have that the human emotions and the human assumptions of, but when one strives to look through the eyes of illumination, through the eyes of understanding from the highest, richest perspective, then there can be less judgment, less appearance of good or bad, right? The duality of, and say, this is yet another phase of life. This is yet another experience that will no doubt have blessings within it. In fact, a favorite quote, not of us, but we do refer to Mary as the individual. We refer to her separately as she is here as a conduit, and a conscious conduit, not a sleeping, unaware conduit. But nevertheless, we do talk about her separately. One of her favorite quotes, which she has relied on many times, going through what would appear to be very negative human experiences, and in the midst of it, it felt like that, right?
Yeah.
But it is this: my barn having burned to the ground, I can now see the moon.
Huh. Oh my goodness, chills. I've never heard that one. I love that.
Isn't it magnificent, right?
Wow.
So someone would be like, oh my God, my barn, my barn. And yet it opened up new vistas, right? So it's difficult humanly. It really is to see, well, how could there be good amidst devastation, namely wars and so forth, or there's any number of things where you can say, how could there possibly be? And yet there's always the stories of humans helping other humans, or coming to the rescue of the animals that are struggling through fires or what have you. It brings out sometimes the very best in people, and of course sometimes very worst. But even in the midst of the most horrifying situations, there can be great, great blessings. So the work then, we would say, for those that are willing to bravely persevere through difficulties, how can I see this in the most positive way? Not sugarcoating, not denying, not suppressing, feeling what needs to be felt, but also saying, I'm sure there's a blessing here, and I'm ready to see it as soon as possible, or any number of blessings here. Does that make good sense?
Yes. And it actually kind of ties into the sort of next point, which was the yin and the yang. I think is a great example of that, because in the yin and the yang, there's good, you can picture the symbol. There's good within the evil. There's that spot of good within the darkness, the spot of white within the black, darkness of the yin and yang, and vice versa. In the good and the white and the light color, there's that spot of darkness. So are sort of both a condition of this reality on Earth? Like you said, we kind of need contrast to even have experience.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would, you look at, if you agree to play a board game, you have to say, well, I'll go by the rules, do not pass go, do not collect, so whatever the rules are. So it is an understanding. However, this is where it gets very interesting. If someone, our perception is someone would agree to have a human experience, right? Pre-soul agreement, call it what you wish, or not. No judgment around that. But someone's having a human experience, and they're tired of the misery. They're tired of, why am I always struggling? They're tired of that. They can say, how can I see this from a more illuminated space? How can I see this through the eyes of wisdom? So while there will always be some contrast, there doesn't have to be suffering through the negativity, nor can there be the assumption that, oh, my pot of gold here, I'll always be it just completely in good. Even when someone is on an upswing of life and things appear to be fabulous, then we hear the saying, then the rug got pulled out from underneath me. We look at the cycle of life like waves coming in from the ocean. There's going to be the rise and fall. And as long as someone can, again, pull back the perspective a little and not just say, well, it's just so bad, or look at all the good, aren't they lucky, right? Even those that appear lucky, they're going to have their hardships, whether it's apparent or not.
Yes. Yes, makes sense. So then we kind of get into, this is my next question, is then there such a thing as absolute evil? Because if there's always going to be some light within the darkness and vice versa, can there be absolute evil? And then the next kind of corollary to that would be, or absolute good?
All right, we'll start with the first aspect of that question,
yes, okay.
Right? So we don't think it's possible.
Yes,
and
okay.
There's been this concept, this idea floating around the last few days, like when someone will say they're just such a horrible person, they're just completely just an evil human, right? Or something like that,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
It's even hard for us to articulate that because there's such discomfort on that. So the yin-yang symbol, right? Within the dark, there is the light. So if someone or something, an essence, was entirely evil, there'd be no room for hope. There'd really be no room for evolution because it would just be accepted as that's finite, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that something appears to be very dark, it's the concept of the shadow, right? As the sun moves, the shadow becomes larger or smaller, or nighttime versus daytime. But our sense is, our firm belief is, and going more to the second aspect of the question, good permeates the very essence of life's energy, right? Life's energy, the truest, highest belief from our perspective is life's energy is all compassionate. It is that unconditional love. Many that have had NDEs, near-death experiences, will speak to the vastness and the inability to describe how amazing it is in the unseen realm. So our belief is there are places of existence, such as the earth, that have a very limited, how can we say this? It's limited in how that's experienced. But the idea is to evolve more into that state of being, return to the Garden of Eden, to quote that, right? There is possibility to return to wholeness and light and goodness. Could that be a totality of an existence? We would say to you, yes.
Really?
Yes. But maybe not quite yet on Earth. Earth has a little more awakening. Here's the analogy we're getting. We're always open to how can we make this very easy to relate to, right? So we see a chicken inside the egg. When it's first conceived of, it grows into being a little chicken in this safe little environment. And it thinks, well, this is great. I'm just hanging out. But at some point, that chicken starts to realize, like, oh, it's getting tight in here. Instinctively, it'll want to break free. And if the chicken thinks, well, this is all there is, I've got to stay, then we know the inevitable would not be coming into full form and full life. There would be death. So, but as the chicken goes through its hardships, cracking open the egg, how does it know to do that? And then getting all the goo off the wings or whatever it goes through, and then coming into full life. What more full experience is it for the chicken? Singing and clucking and eating and hopping around and flying a little bit. So humans, it's still a little limited. It's still a little bit of an embryo state. It's still a little like there isn't the full picture here, right? many have had illuminated experiences, that they realize, or again, NDEs are a very good example of bringing back the truth, bringing back this more whole concept of unconditional love and joy and bliss and all the goodies. So our firm belief is it really does exist, and it's a matter of bringing quite literally more illumination to the areas that appear to be dark and sometimes really are in a darkened state, bringing in more illumination and light so there is more capacity for love, joy, compassion, and all the good expressions of love.
Wow. So yeah, that brings up a lot of things. But let's start with, okay, so I think what you're saying then is that the second part of my question, which was about absolute good, that in a way there can be absolute good.
Yes.
Now, I have a question about that, because I've always sort of felt that love wasn't a duality, that there really is no opposite of love. Like some people will say hate is the opposite of love, but I feel like contained within hate, there's a certain passion or love.
It is.
Because to really truly hate something, you have to have a passion, which would indicate there's some kind of love gone wrong. So to me, love maybe doesn't have an opposite, so that when you say there's absolute good, maybe what you're saying is there's love, and that love feels good, because in a way we as humans call that absolute good, but is it really absolute good, or is it's the absence of duality, or can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, and with your permission, we'll say what we feel, and it might be a good time for you to explore from an illuminated space what information you're getting on
Okay.
right? Because this is deep within you, the need to know, right? And within many people. So give us just one moment.
Yeah.
We agree with you that there is no opposite to love. And we don't want to leave it at some esoteric level like, well, love just is, because it even biblically is like love is patient, love is kind, right? Throughout all time, humans have strived to have an understanding, and even we dare say a description of what love is. And yet again, pulling on near-death experiences, individuals coming back, almost always the commonality is they can't describe. They don't have the language.
Yeah.
So love is almost, if not entirely impossible, we would say, to humanly define. And yet everyone at some time, whether it's looking into the eyes of a new baby or playing with a puppy, or everyone knows these, or witnessing a magnificent sunset or the moon, the full moon. There are these moments, these illuminated moments that just bring you back into center and knowing that you know, that joy-filled, just all-knowing. So to us, love can be very easily confused with that passionate, flirtatious, crushy kind of, oh, I love them, right? And there is love in that, but there's so many other ways that it manifests. And you made a very, very fascinating point about anger. Like, I'm so mad, but even the attachment to, or the energy around that, a lot of times someone that's very angry is trying to make a point to get the other person to understand, and then there can be harmony, and then there can be a return to unity, right? If they really don't care, they're going to walk away with complete detachment, if that is even humanly possible.
I was going to say, is it? Yes, hate. We're talking about hate. That
Right.
You're so angry, because I was saying hate is the opposite of love. So yeah, even that anger, that hate is really love, maybe disguised or seeking love in some way.
Some will say it's a call for love, and some will say when there's anger, it's an attempt to make the other feel guilty. But either way, there's still an attachment or a connection to that, because if someone is really completely fed up or angry, they will, the gray rock is being thrown out. They're like, there's just nothing. But that's almost impossible, if not entirely impossible either, right? So ultimately, on this path of humanness, which is challenging, there's no question about that, is how soon can I, in integrity, return to my own state of quiet and peace, and from that place extend love rather than hatred. Because if someone has exhibited horrible behavior, it is from a place of woundedness. It is a place of not understanding. And again, we go back to not, is that person evil? Their actions might very well be evil. So we're not saying, oh, it's not really evil actions. Yes, there's some unthinkable actions that are apparently coming to light right now. So these are evil actions, but that person is so deeply lost, so deeply wounded. And so how can any individual seek to help them find illumination? It doesn't forgive what they're doing, and these things must be stopped and brought to light. But in that playing out, can there still be an extension of hope, an extension of compassion, that they will ultimately come to understand how to better act or behave as a human? And some may not in any given lifetime, so we're not sugarcoating over the heaviness of this whatsoever. Some will never in any given lifetime come to see the truth. And that's kind of a different angle we went with that, but
I kind of wanted to go into that too.
Good.
Which was, what about, like, because I love that you said that there can be evil actions.
Correct.
And I do, that resonates well with me too. Like, sometimes people's actions are objectively evil, things that have happened. It doesn't mean that the person is objectively evil, but the actions can be, and the actions have consequences, and a lot of times there's punishment or just consequences that come from the evil action, and you have to face those consequences. And just because maybe the person changes doesn't mean that they won't still have to face the consequences of their past evil actions, which maybe everybody can agree were evil.
Correct.
But what about, like, dark triad personalities? We get into, like, a lot of talk these days about narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths, and we want to demonize those people. What would you say about those? I mean, those types of situations, could we classify those people as evil or no?
Again, we would probably across the board distinguish evil actions from an evil soul.
Yes.
Our firm belief is that when you look to, like, a flickering candle, that flame of light, everyone has dwelling within them some flicker or flame of light. Now, for some, it's going to be down to just the faintest flicker. And we're speaking just on human terms here. But then there's others that you can just see. They're just glowing. They're bright. They light up the room. There's the other end of the spectrum. But our belief is, however someone is categorized, they're a narcissist, they're bipolar, they're this, they're that, and we're not trying to put bipolar in that negative category, but lots of labels right now, right? There's a lot of that happening for a sense of understanding, but there can also be limitations when someone says, I am a, or I've been diagnosed with, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. But the tool we often recommend to help bring compassion into the dialogue is, where did their wounding begin? Who was teaching them that was okay, and who was disrespecting them? And almost always, if not always, that person's path can be taken back quite often to childhood, where they were mentored, taught, disrespected themselves, that behaving that way toward another is acceptable. Now, their soul essence will know it is not true. And sometimes people think, well, they're just getting away with holy hell. They're getting away. No one's catching them. They're not being punished. They're not. The soul knows, and the human will suffer, right? Whether in the immediate or in the delayed, or consequentially in the exterior. But suffering cannot be denied when the soul is not given its opportunity to rise and shine. So by looking back to go, why would they do this? Where did their wounding begin? That they are so wounded that they are perceiving this as acceptable. It doesn't forgive, but it does explain, and understanding the root of someone else's pain. That's a good place to begin, and having the hope or sharing the intention, sending the attention, that's where their healing can begin as well.
There's so many places to go from there.
Yes. And if we may, we're going to say, would you like to have an opportunity to ask your group?
Let's see if we could do that. So, and I've never done this before. Go ahead. Yes, you please.
You have an exceptionally bright mind, dear. So it's a delight to converse with you. But in order to simplify this for you, and it may not go this way at all, often a singular question, you just say, I guess the first thing I'm wondering is, because there you can see there's so many ripples that this can go in.
Yes.
Not that you're going to trip up those that are willing to work with you on your behalf and for the group, the good of the whole, but it's just a good opening, which door are you going to go into?
So so I need to ask a question, I guess is what we're saying.
It's a good way to start.
What question should I ask?
So this is how we would guide you say, I guess the first thing I'm most interested in would be, so you can ask yourself, like, if I could only ask one question, what would it be? Or where would I like to begin? What's the first thing I'd love to hear from them? And then that's how you'll know how to begin asking.
Okay.
No pressure.
Well, let me just say, too, that just for a little background on this is that I would be channeling a different group, and I have been sort of contacted by a group throughout my life, and I've never tried to channel them, so this would be my first attempt at seeing whether they, how it would work for them to come through and speak through me in this sort of channeled capacity. And I am not sure what question to ask, because the questions I've got, let's see. I guess my next question for you was going to be about, what about non-human entities?
Gee, that seems like an interesting place to start, if we may say so.
Yes, because we say, all humans,
Right.
We've talked about humans, but there's also, aliens, demons, energetic creatures, and I tend to believe that even they have a seed of light within them. So that was going to be sort of my next question. So how would you suggest, if I were to try to ask my group, I would just say,
here's what I'm asking you. What
Yes.
would you like to say? And I avail myself to you. And again, as we said before, with the understanding that you have already set boundaries to say this is on your terms. It's always to be respectful. Not that we're worried anything else negative would happen. But for those that might be curious about this, you have the right. This is your beingness. This is your human beingness. So it's just like opening the door to a stranger. If someone knocks at your door, you're going to say, who is it? Or you look through the people, or you have your security camera, whatever your system is, right? You don't just open the door and let anyone in. So the understanding is, being aware of who's asking to work in collaborative effort with you, with the understanding they will be respectful of your energy, your time, your permission, and so forth.
Okay, so I guess I will ask a question, and then I'll just kind of get silent and go into myself and see what comes up. And
Perfect.
The question I would ask is, this concept of absolute evil, how does it, or the absence of absolute evil, we've kind of established that there really isn't an absolute evil. It's the yin and the yang, and we've talked about it through humans. So what about with non-human entities like aliens, demons, within the sort of mythology of Earth? There's a lot of these types of,
Dark
demons
energies,
and a lot of people, it's really alive for them and real.
Correct. And more so now, our belief is than we have witnessed in the past. More prevalent now. And some of that is because of social media exposure, but there is a lot of overt negativity on the planet, so it leads many to believe, like, is that demonic energy? Is that dark energy? So it's a very good topic to speak to.
Okay, yes. So the question would be, yes, what about the concept of absolute evil in non-human entities?
Go
ahead, yes.
May we say? Okay, here's what we're getting here.
Yes.
We're observing. So there's going to be one spokesperson coming, being. Freudian slip there. Maybe even Freud wouldn't say so, but there's one leader coming.
Okay.
So that you won't be overwhelmed with like who's saying what, because some can channel multiple beings, this voice, that voice. If you have one that has dropped in, we're witnessing from the others, but like a spokesperson.
And then how does it feel?
So give us a moment.
Okay.
They're going to dictate it, so we're able to observe. We're able to say, this is what we're getting, right? So it's a collaboration of a collaboration. It's an observation of a collaboration. So one very lovely, very respectful energy being is working with you. our sense is that you have unusual hearing abilities. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
So they're going to almost like ticker tape whisper. It's almost like the news when they're like, tell them that the weather's going to be, we're going cutting to the weather soon. They're going to probably say, so your voice may or may not be altered. A lot of times to distinguish, there is some type of alteration in the voice coming out, just so listeners can know the difference. You'll feel into, but our sense is there, allow them to give you one sentence. Just say, what's the first sentence? And you can sort of break it into bits. This is what we're being shown to give you.
Yes. This is
one or two sentences, and then you just have to give it voice. So what I'm getting is, but don't be surprised if the I of you comes out of it.
The I?
So what I'm getting, you might just say, you might just go right into it.
I got you. Okay.
Because the I really does recede. The personality recedes.
So what about non-human entities?
Can we give you the first sentence?
Yes.
So we'll say it because they're showing us.
Yeah.
And then you say it and see what comes after that.
Okay.
Because our sense is you're going to have it right after that. And then we'll speak to this afterwards.
Yes.
So you said, what about non-human entities? Is that correct?
Yes.
What we're hearing for your spokes being, who will identify themselves more if you desire, is they are all around.
They are all around. Wow, non-human entities are all around us.
Keep going.
All the time. And a lot of them, the majority of them are benevolent and here to help. I would say maybe 90% feel, well, let's back up. The ones that aren't here to help sort of feed on our fear, on the fear of human beings. And when we're in that state of fear, they're around.
They're empowered.
Yes, they're empowered. So even those beings that feed on the fear of humanity, there is a seed of light within them as well. So to answer that question, there is not absolute evil, even in the context of beings that the humans would call demons, or even, the ultimate Satan, which a lot of religious folks really project onto this idea of absolute evil and Satan. Those beings are fear-based, and when the light is shown on them, they often recede, and they're not absolute evil.
You're absolutely right, dear. This is an honor and a privilege to witness what you're doing right now. It takes a lot of courage what you're doing. It's extraordinary, and you're absolutely right. We just want to say one thing, not to you.
Okay.
Just want to add on what you're saying, and we would encourage you to continue. Just to you, know that there need be no rush. There's eagerness in this, but
yes,
they will always be patient to gift you the information however you're receiving it, whether you're hearing it energetically, receiving it telepathically, but you're very clear in what you're getting. We actually think there's clairvoyance in this also, that you're seeing some of the beings. This is how we're witnessing what you're doing. It's extraordinary, dear. Really beautiful to witness. And we want to say how right you are in the messages that you're bringing forth from your collective. They're very honored, very excited to be working with you, by the way. We just had to, they're like, we're ready, let's go. But not impatiently so. But two things, if there was absolute evil, there would be no hope, because then it really is the ultimate battle, and what if evil wins? Evil will never win. Light and love are always more powerful than the dark. We witness this all the time on the planet Earth, when the sun can, the shadows disappear. And when not only the avoidance of fear, they will feed on negativity and fear and controlling and all that. They feed on that. But conversely, as you have alluded to here and spoken to, really, if there are blessings extended, if there is light and compassion extended, again, why are they feeding on the fear? Because they have their own woundedness. They have their own issues, if it were. When love is extended, then hatred and ugliness and evil will retreat, or it will even transmute. It will become part of the collective of good. And ultimately, many will say they're fallen angels. Well, if they're fallen angels, let's get them unfallen. Let's help them rise again. Let's help them restore to their state of wholeness. It's not, the many in religious beliefs will say there is forgiveness, there is hope, there are miracles. Better to believe those things and help those that are fallen, those that have lost their way, those that are off the mark, sinning off the mark. Help them get on track, send them love, send them what they need, rather than hating them more, vilifying them more. Give them what they need and watch how the collective good becomes more illuminated and more powerful.
I love that. And I love, you mentioned the word sin, which is from the Latin to miss the mark. It's an archery term, really. So we kind of have misused it to think we've done something wrong, but it's just, it more implies just a little off.
Yes, so then you make the correction, and if someone needs help with that correction, you just compassionately say, let me help you, right? So the extension of goodness and kindness, prayers, blessings, intentions, it is, science is studying this. It's very powerful, truthfully, to send blessings to the darkest rather than make them evil.
I love it. And we could go on a whole other rabbit hole with that too. I do want to ask one more question because we have to start wrapping up soon, crazily. But just to speak on that a little bit is that we do have to, we can help these evil so-called entities or humans. Fear-based, I think, is probably a better way to even say it, because it does feel like mostly it's fear-based.
Yes, it is. Or even there's some, to say those that are not in alignment.
In alignment, yes.
They're not in alignment, and there's no ugliness in the referral, because even when someone as a human holds the energy of like, oh yeah, they're so evil, what energies are they holding within their body, right? Whether they believe in the percentage of water or just energy patterns. Better to say truth statement, but have it be as gracious and compassionate as possible.
Wow. Yeah.
So those that are not in alignment with the highest good is truth, just an example of, as opposed to those evil beings.
Yeah.
Right? It just brings the energy right down, and it really is adding to that vibration, which is the opposite of what is really required to have a more optimum outcome.
Which is what we see just so much happening in politics right now, this demonization of the other side, whether it's, the radical left or the right-wing extremists, or we dehumanize, and then we use that to justify violence or angry actions toward our perceived enemies.
Correct.
So what can we do as humans? Let's end on a practical note, because I see it so much. We get passionate about these things that we don't want, and maybe that's right to have some passion about, this is so wrong, I want to fix it. But when we start demonizing the so-called evil actors, then we're just falling into this trap and creating more duality and creating enemies and creating
we're creating the individual is going to have disharmony within themselves. They're going to start to create duality within their own being. Are you good? Can I trust you? Are you bad? Do I distance myself from you? So it comes all the way down to the most minute within a household. Well, we're a divided house. So what can be done?
What can we do?
We have a very simple recommendation or solution, right? So fear is, I hope this bad thing doesn't happen. It's going to be awful if this bad thing happens, right? It could be political, it could be global, it could be environmental, fill in the boxes, right? So it's okay to identify what the fear is. It's not to say that fear doesn't have its place. It has a very valid place, like, oh, that's upsetting to me. Let me figure out what that is. Identify the fear, and then what we say is flip that over. Turn that opposite and say, what is it that you hope for? When there is dwelling on the fear, energetically, it really does add to the fear and attract more fear. So the opposite is, well, what would I like the outcome to be instead? So whatever it is, let's say environmental, like I hope there's not more pollution. Let's just say something in general. So no, the fear would be, gosh, the planet's just getting so polluted, it's just awful, we're all going to get sick and we're all going to die. Right? So fear. Say, gosh, there's concerns, right? So it's important to be honest. We're not about denying. There's real concerns about what's happening around the planet and some of the pesticides or pollutions. And then the individual or the group, the collective, can say, gosh, our hope is there will be a rise in awareness, more people committed to, more voices on the side of truth that will start to bring about transformation, so that the planet will once again be this glorious place that it was always intended to be. So recognizing the fear and then saying, what is the outcome you hope for? And there can be intentions, affirmations, prayers, blessings, all kind of languaging around that. But there is power in seeing what you would like the outcome to be, rather than dwelling on what the perceived negative reality is at this time.
And then taking action toward those.
Ideally, yes. If someone feels inclined, like, well, I'm going to go do a river cleanup.
Yeah.
It's very empowering to go do one thing. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be addressing the pollution, using that as an example. What are you doing? You, if we may, you're a beekeeper, and you're very conscious, loving, very committed, ethically correct beekeeper, right? Well, they're pollinating. That's helping the plants.
Yeah.
So you're doing positive. And if someone was a naysayer and said, oh, well, all the bees, they're all, we don't even want to language it. But here's an individual, and there's so many individuals that are fascinated by beekeeping now, so that there's an uprising in interest because the need is there. So if the focus is always on all the bad that appears to be, it's better to say, where are the people, where are the individuals, where are the groups that are raising consciousness and literally, tangibly doing good things, like yourself, dear.
Thank you. I thought of, when you were talking about pollution, I'm like, well, then plant a
That's
vegetable.
Exactly it. Go plant a vegetable. Some are inclined, some are inspired to go fight against. We're going to stop the bad.
Yeah.
That's their calling. Great. And some are going to sit home and just plant a tomato and go, well, I didn't do much. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You shifted the consciousness, you shifted the energy. And what did you do to your body when you harvested some ripe little tomato right out of your own little garden? It's very gratifying, right? So your vibration was increased. So every little effort is consequential in the best of ways. So please, all we say to everyone, please don't minimize your contribution. Well, all I did was, don't say it that way. It's like, I planted a tomato and I ate it and it was divine. There's a lot of joy and vibrancy in that.
And then you spread that joy and vibrancy.
Exactly.
It has a ripple effect. And if you post it on social media, maybe
Absolutely.
a couple hundred people see it and are inspired.
It. And they go plant a tomato. Next thing you know.
We're all growing our own food, and we're
That's
less reliant on these pesticide-driven entities
correct.
that are
and
the
those
problem.
that are inclined to be here and helping, and you're very right in spreading the good word, it's just more and more focus needs to be there, because that also gives permission for those non-human beings, if you will, angelic beings, all kind of beings are coming in. They don't need a lot of permission, but they need a little headway. They need a little we'll come help you, right? Miracles can really help. Can make a difference. There are many that are coming in now, flooding the planet, wanting to do good. It just takes permission. It takes the alignment with. So again, if someone's focus is on the negative and the fear, they are not helping the bigger picture. But those that are saying, well, I'm going to do one little thing, don't be surprised if that becomes many little things, because there are those in what we refer to as the unseen realm that are always willing and able to help.
Love it. Well, let's end there today, because we got to clean up and stuff. But I want to thank the channel and Mary Hayes, of course, for doing this. And hopefully this will be the first of several of these type of talks. I mean, we got through not even half a page, and I've got several pages.
We're off to a very noble start. We thank you for the opportunity, for sharing the vision, sharing the reality of this. It's our deep honor, dear. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, is there anything coming up that you want to mention or plug too? We should say that. Mary, are you back?
Yes.
So what have you got coming up?
Gosh, well, I do the evening with the channels quite often.
You have a couple one this month and one next month.
I do, actually. And then I think at my office in Winter Park, I'm going to start doing them quarterly.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, so my website, maryhayes, HAYES.org. I keep up with my events and tickets, and everything's very reasonable because I'm spreading the good.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.